Hello, this is the assembly video of a custom cabinet 32. This is a takeoff of my rustic wardrobe, and so it does not assemble the same way as the wardrobe does, and so I'm going to take you through final assembly of the custom cabinet now so that you can see how it gets assembled, and this will act as your assembly instructions video. So it's going to come in one or two boxes. Once you have them taken out of the boxes, just check and make sure that everything is in good condition. Nothing got damaged during shipping. If you do see any issues, then please follow the instructions that are in the packing slip on how to file a claim with UPS. Once we open the packages, you're going to get your welcome packet, which is your instructions, and it shows you what the panel list is. It shows you the hardware that's involved, and it gives you a basic overview of everything that should be in the boxes. Now, I designed this piece to be assembled with just a Phillips head screwdriver. Since this is final assembly of this, I may have to pilot a couple of holes or make some marks so that it'll be easier for you to assemble it once it reaches your house. So we've opened the package. We've got our parts list, which comes in 3 different bags, and so we have 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to start off with 1 and 3 first. So it's a good idea to take everything out just to make sure all the pieces are here and count them. And I'm going to do that as we go along just to save some time. So right now I'm just taking them out, putting them on top of the bags so that I can have easy access to it. Take my parts list. Now I'm just going to sort these out, and I'm going to get started with the panels we start with. So I'm going to take these little pieces here and just put them off to the side. You should see a piece that is not painted. This is actually a shim. We're going to need that later when we assemble the door. So we're just going to put that off to the side for now. As you see the pieces, each one is labeled. This is D, this is H. You're also going to see arrows on them. There's going to be 2 types of arrows. There's going to be a red arrow and there's going to be a blue arrow. The blue arrow generally is pointing down or to the back, while the red arrow is pointing up or to the top of the cabinet. That's just something that's going to help us orientate these panels as we're going through the assembly. So right now I'm just going to take these and put them off to the side and split everything up so that I can get to the ones I'm going to need first to start the installation. Generally, I try to label these in the order we were going to use it. So we are going to start with A, B, and C. Those are the first panels. And these last 2 panels, which are the side panels, this is where we're going to start off. And they're going to go side by side. We're going to see that panel C is going to be on your left. Panel B is going to be on your right. The 2 blue arrows are going to be facing in, and the red arrow is going to be facing up. And then that's our orientation for this one. And then we're going to grab the A panel. So the A panel is the back panel. This is an accordion panel, and it has a hinge, so it opens up. And we see that this is going to be the inside of the cabinet, and then the other side is going to be the back of the cabinet. We have an arrow. This arrow goes up. It's blue. I'm going to change that to red. That's supposed to be a red arrow. So we know that that red arrow is going to be matching up with the other red arrows there. So we've got a set of hinges here. We're going to take those hinges and we're going to set them down. And what we're going to see on the back is we're going to see these dowel holes, and there's a total of 6 of them, and they correspond to the dowel holes that are in panel C and B. So we're going to go into bag number 3 now, and we're going to grab 6 of the dowels. And we're going to take those dowels and we're going to put them in the corresponding holes here. They can be a bit tight going in. I have a little rubber mallet here that I'm going to use to bang them in. You do want them to sit all the way down. There's only going to be about ½ an inch sticking above. So you can use a hammer if you're really delicate. You don't want to damage these pins, but you do need them to be sitting all the way inside the panel before we connect it to the sides. All right, now that we have these 6 dowels in, I'm going to turn it back up again so that you can see A. You can see the arrow facing up. And we're going to take that and we're going to put it all the way up here. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to line up the holes that are in panel C and B with the dowels that are in A. So it's just a matter of taking a look at it, finding them there, and then just giving it a push down. And I find it's best to do one side and then just like a zipper, kind of go up the panels until they all slide down. All right, now once we're in place here, we're going to go into bag number 1, and we're going to grab 4 of the larger brackets that we have. So the larger bracket, it's pretty easy to distinguish between the smaller ones. And if we take a look at the panels here, we'll see where it is marked out and there are pre-piloted holes where these brackets are going to go on each side. So I'm going to just place them here now on each side. And these brackets are going to be what holds panel A to panel B and panel C. And these brackets, all the brackets, the small ones and the big ones, go in with the screws that you're going to see in the O package that's inside bag number 1. So I'm going to unwrap these now. I'm going to set them aside because we're going to use quite a bit of these as we go through the whole assembly. So each one of these larger brackets has 2 screws per. So I've got 4 here, which means we're going to have a total of 16. We're going to have a total of 16. And so line up the bracket with the pre-drilled holes that are on here, and you're just going to take your Phillips head screwdriver and then screw them in. And what I'll do, just for this video, save some time, is just speed this up as I go around and I screw all of these brackets in on both sides. It's important to note as I'm finishing up here that wood does have a tendency to flex and to bend, and so the holes that are piloted in here, you kind of want to make sure that that's where the screws are lining in. You don't want to set or drill any new holes. Everything should fit in. Sometimes it takes a bit of pushing or sliding in order to get it together. And as I mentioned, that's just because that's the nature of wood. That's what makes it great. And that's definitely what you're going to find in any type of handmade rustic furniture that uses solid wood. So now that we are here, and we've got our panel A connected to our panel B, what we're going to do is we're going to fold this out. And so these are the hinges again, and we're going to just take and we're going to just pull these two apart. And then what's going to happen is the sides are going to come up and the back is going to lay flat. And I've had a little bit of experience with this, so I can do it myself. If you have a helper, that's probably the best thing, because I realize that I've put together a whole bunch of these, but you probably haven't. So now that we're here, we can start to see it taking shape. It may feel a bit flimsy, but as we go around and we slowly add all our pieces together, it shores up until by the time we're ready to lift this up, we have a nice solid cabinet. So now that we're at this point, we're going to put the top on. So we're going to go to our collection of pieces here, And we're going to grab the top, which is panel D, which you can see here. And so we're going to take panel D, we're going to see that arrow. In this case, that arrow is going to be facing down, so all the arrows are going to go together. And we're just going to kind of place it to get an idea of where it's going to be. So now that we're there, we can take a look and we can see all of these dowel holes in the very top. So there's a total of, let me just do a quick count, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Total of 12 dowels that will go in here as we go through. So right now we're just going to focus on the side dowels and the 2 in the back. So we have 3, 6, 7, 8 dowels that we're going to grab out of bag number 3. I'm going to set this aside for now because the dowels are going to go in the leading edge of panel C, A, and B. So if you look around that leading edge, you're going to see the dowel holes, and that's not the best angle, but once you have it up, you'll see that and you're going to get 3 on the very top of C, 3 on the very top of B, and then panel A has 2 at the very top. So we're going to put those in, and I'm going to go grab my little rubber mallet so that I can bang them all the way in. And again, you'll see that about ½ an inch is going to be sticking up out of the panels themselves. Now that we got those in, these are what are going to guide us when we put in the very top panels. So, grabbing D with the arrow facing down, we're going to line up our very first. Now this is connecting a whole bunch of pieces together. And so I usually start by just putting in the very tops that are on A, and then putting pressure on it, sliding them in to B, and then eventually into C, so that they all go in. And they should all line up and go in without too much issue at all. Now, this section uses the smaller brackets on the sides and 2 large brackets on the back. So we're going to put the 2 large brackets in place first. And this should be the last 2 large brackets we have. And those are going to take a total of 8 of the O screws. So looking down, you will see where those brackets are marked with the placement and the piloted screw holes. And we'll just put these in the same way we did before. And the way that this panel pulls in, it's best to connect it to panel A first on both sides before you connect it to the top panel, because then it'll pull it all together. Now with those larger brackets in, we're going to grab 4 of the smaller brackets that are going to go on the sides. And these 4 smaller brackets only use 2 screws each, and they use the same screws as the larger brackets. So I'm going to grab a total of 8 more screws. And then finding the marks where they go in. Now these are smaller and they're a little bit harder to hold on to. So what I do is I just put the screw in first, put the screw in the pre-piloted hole, and then once that's there, tighten it down. And I'm going to connect it to the side panels first before I connect it to the top. So connect all of the brackets to the side panels, and then once they're all connected, then go back and connect it to the top. And then here's that trick again. I'm just taking the screw, putting the screw into the bracket. Then I'm using that to kind of find the pre-piloted hole. And then screw it in. And now, once they're all screwed in on the sides, I'm going to go and put the screws in on the top and pull the whole piece together. Okay, so as you can see, now that we're starting to assemble the pieces, this is getting a rigidity to it and it's getting stronger, and that's going to continue throughout the entire process. Now we're going to look at these side panels here. So each side panel has 2, 4, 5, so 5 dowels per on each side. So we're going to go into our bag, we're going to find those dowels and put them in. Going back around just to make sure that they're all tapped in as far as they can go with 1/2 inch sticking out. All right, now that we've got that in with the dowels and the top, we're going to look at putting the bottom piece in. So the bottom piece is H, and you can see that it has a down arrow on it. Now the way that we're looking at this piece, this is if we're seeing it from the inside. So we want to make sure that from the inside we can see it facing in. And then just taking a look at it here, you'll see we have 4 dowel holes here, which actually going to connect to panel A in the back. So setting this aside, let's grab 4 more dowels and put them into A to act as our guide. And now that we have those dowel holes in, we're going to see H, we're going to see the arrow facing down, then we're going to flip that in, slide this between the 2 sides, line it up, and then just give it a little bit of a tap, and it'll fit right onto those dowels we just put in. And then once those are in, we have to connect this piece to the back. And so on the bottom, we're going to see 4 piloted holes. And reaching into bag number 1, we're going to pull out or open our little package P, which has 1.25 inch screws in it. So we're going to grab 4 of those 1.25 inch screws and our screwdriver, and we're going to screw those in. And then once those pieces are in, you can take a look, and everything should be nice and pulled tight on the top. We're getting ready to put our sides on. As we look at this piece here, we're going to see that there are 2 holes, 2 dowel holes on the top. So I'm going to grab 2 more dowels out of our bag and put them in those dowel holes. Now these next 2 pieces, these side pieces, are really what create the structure in this frame. So we're going to start with F. As you can see it there, it's got a red arrow showing us where the top is. And just flip it over, we're going to take a look at our dowel placement on the very back of it. So as we line it up, you can see where the dowel hole matches up here, and then all the dowel holes on the side. Now this one has got 1 final dowel hole, which is on the very top that you can see there on the side with the red arrow. So I'm going to grab a dowel from the bag, put it in there, and this is going to be our guiding dowel right here. So Realizing that it is there, we're going to take it and we're going to take a look here at the very top of this. Up, and F goes on the left side as you're facing it, which means, and I'll just pull this out now so that we can see, E is going to go on the right side. So, using that dowel pin at the very top, we're going to find the dowel hole here at the very top panel, panel D. We're going to put that guide pin in, and then once it's in, we're going to start at the very top and push down and line it up with all those dowel holes. Now, when we get to this one on the very bottom, we just have to make sure that it's lined up properly. So you generally have to move it up or down in order to hit the hole, and this is what is squaring us off here. So then once you find it, just give it a bang down. I'm using a closed fist. I'm not using too much pressure. You don't want to hurt your hand. And then you can see that piece is in. Now, we're going to add our guiding dowel to the very top of panel E. Put that in, push it all the way in, find its corresponding hole at the very top on panel D, slide it in, and then just like we did before, starting at the very top, bang it in. When we get to the center panel here, make sure that hole lines up, and then bang those all down. Now that these are in place here, we're going to use brackets, and we're going to use the remaining brackets we have here. So it's a total of 6 of the smaller brackets, and we're going to put them in. Now this is a little bit hard. You have to do it from underneath. So I'm going to set everything up. I'm going to get my remaining screws that I have. So I should have a total of 12 screws. I'm going to set them inside, and then just like we did on the very top, in order to make it easy, I'm going to put one screw on one side of that, and we're going to first screw in to the side panels. So using that screw as a guide, I'm going to find the hole, I'm going to insert the screw into the hole, and then just screw it in. You want to make sure that it does not flip and that the other angle side is actually facing towards the top. Now I'm going to go through this on every single one and probably speed it up so that you don't have to watch me putting all 6 in. Oh, it is worth mentioning that if you're looking for where they're placed, they're right above where the brackets are underneath them. So that's kind of easy placement. And if you look underneath, you can definitely see the markings and the piloted hole where it goes. Now, once they're all screwed into the sides, I'm then just going to go around and screw them all into E and then into F. And that should use up the remainder of our medium-sized screws. Okay, so now it's really starting to strengthen up here. And we've got a couple more steps before we'll actually lift it up. The first of those steps is going to be to put our supports in for this bottom panel here. And so looking at our supports, you're going to grab H1 and H2. And you'll see them here with the arrow facing the back. So H2 is going on the right, H1 is going on the left, and these are using 6 of the large wood screws. And just to simplify things for me, I'm just going to twist these in here, and it'll make it a little bit easier when I'm screwing them in on the bottom. Now when you put these in, you want to put them in and then pull them up so that they're touching panel E. And then once you do that and you start screwing them in, they will find the pre-piloted holes that are behind them. And you could see the board bend a little bit, so in which case just give it a push up so that it is flush against the H panel. And we're going to repeat the same thing for the other side. Pulling it up so that it's hitting the top of panel F and then screwing it in. All right. And now that we're here, all I want to do is I want to put the bottom feet on this panel. And if you go into bag number 2, you will see that there are 4 nylon feet that go on the very bottom of the cabinet. And then looking at the bottom of the cabinet, you'll see where there are pre-drilled holes that they slide into. And there's one in the front, there's one in the back. And so you're just going to put them in the holes and give them a push down. And we're going to take a look at finishing off the very bottom piece here. In which case we're going to grab panel I. We look at panel I again. There are 2 dowel holes. So I'm going to reach into the bag and grab those 2 and insert them like we've been doing. Push them all the way in. And then looking on the very back, you'll see that there are 4 piloted holes that are going to use those bigger 1¼ wood screws. So just like we did with those side panels, I'm going to just hand twist these in. And then, with the red arrow facing up, we're going to slide this underneath. It fits between H1 and H2. And then those dowels slide into the bottom of panel H. Once they're in, you're going to screw in those 4 wood screws that we put on the back on each side. Now looking at the top, we're going to grab panel J. Panel J is going to have 2 dowel holes on the top. This is going to be our last 2 dowels. We'll take those out, we'll insert them in. The other thing about panel J, since it goes across the top, is going to have a magnetic catch. And you can see that here, it's on your right side. There are 2 piloted holes and a little bit of a mark. So we're going to go into bag number 2. We're going to find the magnetic catch. This is what holds the door closed. We're going to unwrap it. There are 3 components of this. There is the catch itself. That goes on the door. There is the magnet. And the magnet is what's going to go on panel J. And you want it facing in with the back flush to the back of panel J. And this is going to come with 2 pan head screws. And we're going to use those pan head screws to screw it in. Then, making sure it's flush to the back, I'm going to tighten these screws down. Now that that's good and tight, we're going to see that there are 4 of those pre-piloted holes on each side, just like there was on the bottom one. And we're going to go grab 4 more of those large wood screws and just hand tight twist them in there. And this is the final frame assembly. So this goes in with the arrow facing up. It slides underneath the 2 side panels. This one feels a little tight, which is fine. We're just going to bang it in. Again, closed fist, not too much pressure. There's no reason to hurt your hand. And then the 2 dowel pins line up on the top. And that pulls right into place. It's just a matter of screwing in those 4 screws on the back. All right, now with that in, you have a solid frame. This is ready to stand up. At this point, I would suggest you have a helper. I've done this enough. I'm going to do it myself. I start by grabbing it and putting it on my toes. Then there's just a matter of bending down, putting your hands underneath the back, and then, as they tell you, you bend and lift with the legs, not the back. We're just going to lift it straight up. And into place. So this brings us into the last stage of this, which is putting the door together, and that's going to happen in 2 stages. The first stage is we're going to prep the door by putting the hinges on, and this is the very last panel we have. This is your K panel, and you see that the K is the side it's facing out, the red arrow is facing up. This is a right-handed door, which means it's grabbed with the right hand, and the hinges are going to go on the left side. So with the left side, we're just going to turn it so that it's facing up, and you can see where the piloted holes are for where the hinges are going to go. Now the hinges are in bag number 2, and these have multiple different size screws, and so I tried to do my best here to sort them out for you, and so I used a color coding. So when you pull out your hinge, first thing what I did was I just taped them so that you kind of see where the screws are going to go inside. And so taking a look at it here, we have 3 different size screws. So we have 2 small screws, we have 2 medium-sized screws, and 1 large screw. So in order to differentiate the 2 large screws, one of them has a white wax on it and the other 2 have a red wax on it. So that's going to be important. So you can just pull the tape off and those screws will come out, and keep them sorted so that we can grab them as needed. So once we get this first one in here, all the other hinges are going to go in exactly the same way. So I'll try to get a close-up of this hinge going on, and then I'll put all the hinges on, and we'll get ready to assemble it and attach it to the door frame itself. So we're going to start in the center hinge here. You can see the pilot holes. Now these hinges have 2 different orientations. So this side here that has the little bit of a rabbet to it, or it's an angled piece, that's going to be connecting to the side rail here, which means that this front piece, which is the center piece, as it opens and closes, is going to go on the door itself. And so, lining up with the 2 pilot hinges, we're going to grab the screws with the red wax on it, and that's what the 2 screws we're going to use to attach it to the door here. So we just want to align the hinge so that it's facing as it's facing here, and we'll see that there's a hole here, and then there is actually 3 holes on the back. There's 2 oval, and then there's 1 round. We're only going to use the round one that's in the middle. So we're going to line it up like this. Again, this is the front panel, and we're going to put that red wax screw in the very top, screw it in, grab the other one, put it in the center on the back, and screw that one in next. All right, now the rest of the screws are going to be used when we connect it to the side rail. So I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to put the rest of the hinges in. All right. Now I'm going to flip the door up. Well, I'm going to flip it the correct way with the arrow facing up. And we're going to just rest that on the side for a moment, because the next part of it we're going to need that wooden shim that we had in the box. So go grab that. And this piece of wood is going to act like the spacer that lifts this up and allows these side hinges to line up here. So we're going to put this in, press it all the way to the back. It overhangs a bit in the front. And this is the tricky part right now with putting this door in, and usually requires a second set of hands. If you don't have a partner, you can certainly try to follow along with how I'm setting this up, but it really is a lot easier if someone else can hold on to it and stabilize it while you put it in. In order to get the best view, I'm just going to tilt this towards the camera so you can see how I'm going to level this up. I'm going to take two of the smaller screws, usually hold one in my hand, the other I get ready to go in by placing it on the top of the screwdriver. This one happens to be a magnetic tip. If you don't have a magnetic tip, you can also use a piece of tape just to hold it on the very edge of the screwdriver. And then what this requires is if you're doing this by yourself, it allows you to have an extra hand. So there's a little piece of tape on there. We're going to take it, we're going to rest it on top of that wooden shim. And now that it's on the wooden shim, we're going to open up the hinge. Now you'll see the very top lines up with the hole. So I'm going to put the very first screw I have in here and tighten it down. Now once that tightens in place, you can let go of the door. Now that seems easy. Trust me, it's a lot easier with a second set of hands. Once that top screw is in place, then we're going to put one of the bottom screws in place, and the wooden shim can come out. So we take and we remove the shim, we line up the hole with one of the bottom ones, put one of the screws in, and we tighten it down. You'll notice these hinges are slotted, so they can slide up and down so that you can adjust the door frame. So that adjustment's going to be needed if when you try to close it, for some reason it's rubbing. So we're going to just try to close it real quick. Everything lines up, so it's not rubbing. I'm going to take the remainder of the small screws and we're going to put them in on the remaining holes that are here. I'm going to get one in this middle hinge here. Okay, now that's all of the hinges, and we can see here the door does close. So the last thing we have are the larger of the screws. These have a white wax tip on them so that you can see them. And when you look inside, we had talked about that little angled piece of iron. That's where these screws are going to go. And with those front screws on, these should automatically line up with the holes, and you can just screw it right in. Now the door is usually meant to stay open. I'm at a bit of an uneven level here in the barn. So I'm just going to twist it back into place. And then once we get on a level stance, that door will stay open all the way, and it doesn't really, well, I guess we're still not level yet. All right, now that we're here, what we have to do is we install that magnetic catch. Well, now we have the striker. So it's a little metal piece. It came with a little small wood screw, and so that's going to line up right in this little opening we have here, and that's going to screw in. And that's what's going to hold the door closed when it connects to the magnet. Lastly, the very final thing we're going to do when we want to put this on before we actually close the door is we're going to put the handle in. So if we look on the opposite side from where the hinges are, we're going to see two holes, which is where the screws go to mount the handle. So from the inside, you're going to take and you're going to push the two silver screws through, and then you'll see them come out on the front. Then it's a matter of lining up the two holes on the handle to those two silver screws and screwing them in at the same time. You can't screw one in before the other. So you want to grab it a little bit, do a couple twists, then do the bottom and do a couple twists. And then just screw both the top and the bottom in at the same time, and that just prevents any type of tension that we're going to put on these as it goes in. And this is the final piece for the cabinet. Then once that's there, we hear the magnetic catch come in. We can see that we're a little bit uneven here, and again, that is because of the floor. So if you're uneven in your house, then you can certainly shim one side. You don't have to use this piece. This is just, can be thrown away. But by shimming a side, it levels it out. Everything opens and closes. So that is the custom 32 cabinet as it's assembled. I hope you like it. I hope it finds a nice place in your house. And thank you for your order. Enjoy.